This is a live look at a press conference out of Chicago. That is Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson speaking. And this follows a deadly mass shooting that left at least 18 people shot outside of a venue there in Chicago. It happened late last night outside of an album release party. Let's listen in to what the mayor is saying right now.
Of how far we still have to go as a city. Shooting into a crowd of people that's not the best of who we are as a city. It's unacceptable, and we will not stand for that in the city of Chicago. We are frustrated, but we are also grieving. We will not rest until there is full accountability. I'm calling on any Chicagoan who has any information about these mass shootings. I'm calling on anyone who has information to come forward. Come forward to help us find these individuals and bring them to justice. It is going to take all of us to stand together against violence. That is why we say that the job of keeping our city safe is not finished. But furthermore, we are still determined, more determined now than ever, to not allow these events to take us backwards. We cannot allow these types of acts of violence to escalate or be normalized. We are mobilizing now to make sure that this incident does not return and bring about more violence. Our Chicago Police Department is working with the families, and victim services are being provided and resources to the families of these victims. Today is certainly a difficult day for our city. We all need to continue to come together and work even harder to stem this senseless violence. I'm grateful to our first responders who showed up the way they always do, as heroes, saving lives and bringing calm to what was a very chaotic event and scene last night. And with that, I'm appreciative of the Superintendent of Police Department, Larry Snelling, and he will speak to you more about these incidents.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First, let me just start by sending my condolences to the families of the 4 individuals who lost their lives last night and the 14 others who were injured by gunfire. When you have a mass shooting like this, it's always a brutal scene. The first thing I have to do is talk about the response and the response of our officers to that scene, that you can only imagine the level of chaos, rendering life-saving aid to those who were also injured, getting people to hospitals as quickly as possible. The first responders, the fire department that showed up, our paramedics that showed up to help out, to do whatever they could to save those who were injured and bleeding, to get them to the hospital for treatment. You know, last night's shooting, let's call it what it was deplorable and cowardly. You roll up to a location where we have an event going on, multiple people exited that venue. They were standing on the sidewalk when a vehicle pulled up. It was around 11 o'clock last night, and they opened fire on a crowd. They didn't care who was struck, and in a matter of seconds, they were able to shoot 18 people in a matter of seconds, taking 4 lives. The victims who lost their lives, 4, a 24-year-old male, a 25-year-old male, 26-year-old female, and a 27-year-old female, lost their lives with this senseless shooting. 14 others were injured by gunfire. Now, currently, our detective division is working extremely hard to get to the bottom of this. We as the Chicago Police Department want to make sure that we bring justice to these families, but we also want to make sure that we take individuals who are this violent and this careless off the streets. It's important to all of our residents of Chicago, and for anywhere else in this country, to remove these types of individuals from the street. Look at how quickly and carelessly 4 lives were snuffed out, with the possibility of a total of 18. We have to do better. We have to hold people accountable. And we, as a society, have to hold people accountable. Wrong is wrong, and when we see it, we need to call it. So we ask anyone who has any information about this shooting, any information about the shooters, you can submit an anonymous tip at cpdtip.com. That's cpdtip.com. It's an anonymous tip that could help our detectives get to the bottom of this. The Office of Victim Services is responding to this shooting currently. They're out talking to the survivors, they're visiting the hospitals, and Victim Services will be available for not only the victims, but the families of the victims who have been harmed by this particular act. All the services are confidential and free. Anyone in need of crisis counseling and support can contact the Office of Victim Services by phone. The number is 312-745-6340. Again, the number is 312-745-6340, or you can email victimservices@chicagopolice.org. When we talk about gun violence, and this is something that we just talked about recently, it can affect anybody at any given time, innocent bystanders, those who are targeted, and those who are not. These careless acts take lives, creates trauma, fear across our city. Keep one thing in mind, this was an isolated incident at that particular location. It was a space that was rented out for this particular event. As we move forward throughout the weekend, we know it's going to be above 90-degree weather throughout the weekend. We have the NASCAR event going on the 4th of July. And we know during this weekend on the 4th of July, every single year, people gather. They get together. We have to do this responsibly. If we see things going on out there that we know has the potential to lead to violence, we need to do everything that we can to report that. Report that to the police. You've heard it before, it sounds like a cliche, but if you see something, say something. It's important. Lives can depend on that. So what I can assure you is that the Chicago Police Department will be out in full force, making sure that we're keeping the city safe and protecting lives from one end of this city to the other. We will be out there to do the work that the Chicago Police Department has been doing to protect people and to keep everyone safe. With that, I'll now turn it over to Deputy Mayor Gary Gatewood.
Good afternoon. As both the mayor and the superintendent have highlighted, the tragic events of last night have shaken our city. It is important to know that the victim services that will be provided, along with the Chicago Police Department, we have activated our incident response protocol. This protocol works with the Chicago Department of Public Health, our partners on the ground who will canvass that area and also canvass the areas of victims throughout the city. Because obviously those victims did not live in the area of this tragic incident. So we will canvass the areas of the victims and provide support there. Additionally, we will be extending our hours of some of our street outreach partners so they can add additional support on the ground to help prevent violence throughout our city. As both the mayor and the superintendent have stated, it's important that Chicagoans know It is our responsibility to keep them safe, and the only way we do that is by working together to keep each other safe. Our goal is to hold people accountable for the harm that they caused to our city last night. We don't need to normalize this because it is not normal. It is not okay. We're going to do our work to make sure these people are held accountable. We're going to do our work to make sure we can surround our arms around victims, provide services for those who need it. And I just want to take a moment to thank the first responders who were on the ground last night and early into this morning. Incredible work, and their fast actions helped save a lot of lives on our streets last night. So they were out there, they were responsive, and that was helpful, and it was always going to be helpful. So our teams will be in full mode, full display mode this weekend and throughout to respond to any things that we're seeing throughout the city. Our executive director of the Office of Emergency Management and Communications has activated the Emergency Operations Center. We also have our Summer Operations Center activated this weekend as well. So every agency in the city will be in coordination to make sure Chicago will remain safe. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Okay. We have
Thank you,
time.
and I forgot to acknowledge Mr. Mike Milstein, the Deputy Director. He also participates in supporting our victims. So we have the full force of government here today, but also throughout this weekend and beyond. So thank you, Mike, and thank you all for being here today.
Okay, so we have time for one question. We'll start in the front here with Brandon.
So over the years, I've spoken with hip-hop groups, promoters, venue owners, and they've all said the same thing about how difficult it is to throw these types of events, not just in Chicago, but nationwide. And maybe this is either the best or worst day to ask about this, but do you feel like the stigma surrounding these types of events are unfair? Does it outlaw hip-hop culture? But then also, was law enforcement aware of this event, and was there any increase in presence at the time?
Well, the first thing, let me just say, violent individuals showed up to a scene and opened fire indiscriminately on people. That in and of itself is terror and an act of hate. That's what we're focused in on right now. Is that these individuals who are responsible have to be held accountable, and to the people of Chicago, anyone that knows anything about what was involved last night, they should come forward, because we have worked too hard as a city to build safer communities. And as the superintendent has indicated, in this isolated incident, we cannot allow that incident to define us as a city, and it doesn't define us as a city. As far as police presence and what was known, I'm going to defer to our superintendent on that.
Yeah, just to answer your question on a couple of things. One, it's like anything else. If you had an Airbnb across the street from your home, you would want to make sure that the people who are renting it out know and understand who they're renting it out to. That's one. I can't speak about the culture when it comes to this particular event. This was a private event. This wasn't something that was on the police department's radar because it is a private event. We respect the First Amendment, but at the same time, we as a police department need to make sure that if we have information that there's the possibility of something that could lead to violence, we'll be there. So those questions are a little hard to answer, but when we know that there's a possibility that something some violence could occur as a result of something like this, we're there. And it's not just for those events. It could be for any particular event where we have prior intel.
And I just want to add the disclaimer that the deadliest mass shooting in the U.S. was at a country music festival.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Superintendent, I know you said this was an isolated event. Are you looking at this venue to possibly shut it down, to give them some citations?
Good
Is there any
question.
talk about that?
There's already a summary closure. So right now, it's been closed. And until we get to the bottom of this, I mean, we had 18 people shot at this location. There is a summary closure in place, and we're going to continue with our investigation. I mean, right now, we're working with our federal partners. The ATF, our CJIC Center, is doing the investigation on the shell casings. We're working diligently to make sure that we get to the bottom of this.
Superintendent, I guess I'd like to ask this of you, but maybe if the mayor wants to weigh in as well. Can you speak to the kind of the overall holiday weekend safety plan? And in light of what happened, will there be extra attention paid to downtown or any other particular areas of the city just to make sure things are safe?
So here's what we're doing. We're distributing our focus on violence across the city evenly. We obviously, where we know that there's a greater potential for danger, for violence, we have a more laser-focused initiative when it comes to that. But at the same time, we're making sure across the city as a whole that we have a focus, because it is the 4th of July. I mean, violence could spike up anywhere, and we want to make sure that we have enough resources in these locations to get it done. Now, do we have plans around particular areas? Yes. And those plans are around the areas where we know most likely people will gather. You know, our beaches, the lakefronts, parks, things of that nature. We want to make sure that we keep those locations safe, because you'll see an increased number of people in those locations. But we have resources out everywhere, and it's not just the Chicago Police Department. We've reached out to some of our partners across the city to make sure that we have additional help. We've also reached out to our community members to make sure that they understand that they need to take a part in this and get information to us when they can.
Superintendent, I know you mentioned this wasn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No need to apologize. I just want to add one other thing to everything that Superintendent Stelling said is absolutely right. Strategic deployment throughout the city of Chicago. That includes expanding the hours of our CVI workers. We're going to expand those hours to 3 a.m. 3 a.m. and then we have our entire summer safety operations site where all of our agencies are working collectively together to ensure that we keep people safe throughout the city. Please, you had a question for the superintendent?
The question is, was any particular individual targeted at the River North incident?
Well, Joe, we don't know right now. That's part of the investigation. Clearly, the group, there was some target somewhere there. So this wasn't some random shooting where someone just decided that they were going to shoot at this
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It looks like that shot dropped out. So just to kind of give you a recap of what's happening, and I'll punch myself back up on camera for you. So there was it looks like we got it back, but I'll give you a quick summary. So the Artist Restaurant and Lounge in Chicago said a deadly mass shooting left at least 18 people shot outside the venue. And they said, quote, shook us deeply. Again, the mayor of Chicago, along with the police department, providing updates. Right now, there are no details on a suspect. 4 people killed, 14 others injured. And there was and this shooting happened at an album release party there at the restaurant and lounge. And again, it looks like that shot chugging along. So as soon as we get any updates, on this case, and if we're able to get a stable shot there, we'll get you back there. But